The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was neutral ground, built by all the major alien races working together. Today, like every year, representatives from across the galaxy gathered here for the annual treaty meetings. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the curved hallways of the station. Her footsteps echoed softly on the metal floors. She carried a small data pad with Earth's proposals for the year. After 50 years of being part of the galactic community, humanity hoped things might finally change for the better. The council chamber was enormous. Seats arranged in circles rose up like steps in an ancient theater. Each section belonged to a different alien race. The Krax Empire occupied the largest section. Their insect-like bodies filled heavy chairs made of dark metal. Their leader, High Commander Vexkar, had mandibles that clicked when he was amused or angry. Across from them sat the Zephyrian Consortium. These beings looked like living crystals that caught and reflected light. When they were happy, they sparkled. When they were angry, they turned dark and sharp. Their trade networks reached every corner of the galaxy. In the highest seats sat the ethereal collective. These ancient beings floated rather than walked. They were pale and thin, with large eyes that seemed to see everything. They claimed to be the oldest civilization in the galaxy, and acted like they knew better than everyone else. Earth's section was small. Just 5 seats in a corner that most aliens ignored. Elena sat down and checked her notes one more time. Today, humanity would ask for 3 simple things. First, expanded mining rights in the asteroid belts that nobody else wanted. Second, a reduction in the harsh trade taxes that made it hard for human colonies to survive. Third, better protection for human ships traveling through alien space. These requests seemed reasonable to Elena. Humans had followed every treaty for 50 years. They had shared their technology freely. They had helped other races when asked. They had never started a war or broken their promises. The meeting began with boring speeches about trade routes and diplomatic protocols. Elena waited patiently for Earth's turn to speak. When it finally came, she stood up and activated her translator device. Honored delegates, she began. Earth respectfully submits these proposals for consideration. She read each request carefully. The chamber grew quiet as she spoke. When she finished, she sat down and waited for responses. The silence lasted only a few seconds before it started. High Commander Vexkar was the first to laugh. His mandibles clicked rapidly as his whole body shook with amusement. The sound was like breaking glass mixed with scraping metal. Other cracks joined in, creating a horrible chorus that filled the chamber. "Did you hear that?" Vexkar said between laughs. "The little mammals think they deserve equal treatment." The Zephyrian representative began to sparkle brightly. In their culture, bright sparkling meant they found something very funny. Soon the entire Zephyrian section was glittering like a jewelry store, their crystalline bodies reflecting light in all directions. 50 years in space and they believe they have earned a real voice, the Zephyrian leader said. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. How adorable. Even the normally quiet ethereals allowed themselves to show emotion. Their large eyes seemed to glow with condescending amusement. One of them floated forward slightly. "Young species often mistake patience for weakness," the ethereal said in a voice like whispered secrets. "Perhaps Earth needs firmer guidance to understand its place." Elena felt her face grow hot with embarrassment and anger, but she kept her expression calm and professional. Around the chamber, other alien races began to join in the mockery. The Drakmarian Republic hissed their disapproval. The tentacled hegemony waved their appendages dismissively. High Commander Vexkar stood up, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. "Let us examine Earth's contributions to galactic security," he announced. "Their weapons are primitive kinetic projectiles. Their ships use crude chemical rockets for sublight travel. Their largest vessel would barely qualify as a patrol boat in our weakest fleet." More laughter erupted. Elena gripped her datapad so tightly her knuckles turned white. "And their military doctrine," Vexkar continued, "relies on nuclear weapons. How barbaric, how utterly backward. They fight like savages throwing rocks." The Zephyrian leader joined in. "Their trade volume is less than a single one of our minor trade routes. Their colonies produce nothing we cannot get better and cheaper elsewhere. What exactly do they offer that justifies equal treatment?" Elena stood up again. The chamber gradually quieted, waiting to hear how Earth would respond to this humiliation. "Earth has always honored its commitments," she said quietly. We have never broken a treaty. We have shared our discoveries freely. We have helped in every crisis we were asked to help with. Yes, said the ethereal representative, like a good pet should. The word pet hit Elena like a physical blow. Around the chamber, aliens nodded in agreement. That was how they saw humanity. Not as partners or equals, but as pets, useful sometimes, but never to be taken seriously. The voting began immediately. Elena had expected debate, discussion, maybe some negotiation. Instead, the aliens voted quickly and decisively. Not only were all of Earth's proposals rejected, but new restrictions were added. Human ships would now need special permits to travel through most of galactic space. The trade taxes on human colonies were increased, not decreased. Human mining operations in the asteroid belts would be reduced by half, and Earth would be required to provide detailed reports on all military activities to the Galactic Council for safety monitoring. The vote was unanimous. Not a single alien race supported Earth's position. As the session ended, aliens began filing out of the chamber. Many continued to laugh and make jokes about the uppity humans and their ridiculous demands. Elena sat in her chair, staring at the voting results on her datapad. High Commander Vexcar stopped beside her as he left. His massive insect form loomed over her small human frame. Perhaps next year Earth will propose something more appropriate, he said, like asking permission to exist. His mandibles clicked with amusement as he walked away. Elena was alone in the chamber now except for a few maintenance robots cleaning up. She activated her communication device and sent a single message back to Earth. Proposals rejected. New restrictions imposed. Recommend immediate consultation with the Defense Council. Then she added something that was not in any diplomatic protocol. They see us as pets. They will always see us as pets. Unless we show them otherwise. The message was encrypted and sent through quantum channels that would reach Earth in minutes. Elena packed up her materials and walked out of the chamber. Her footsteps echoed differently now. Before they had sounded uncertain, hopeful. Now they sounded like the countdown to something terrible. Behind her, the empty chamber seemed to hold its breath. The seats where powerful aliens had laughed at humanity just minutes ago now sat in darkness. None of them realized they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. They had humiliated a species that specialized in remembering insults. They had dismissed a race that turned patience into a weapon. They had laughed at beings who spent centuries planning their revenge. Earth would indeed consider its position carefully, just as Elena had promised. But not in the way the aliens expected. The real question was not whether humanity would respond to this humiliation. The question was whether galactic civilization would survive humanity's response. The news feeds across Earth showed the same footage over and over. Ambassador Elena Vasquez, sitting in that tiny corner section while aliens laughed at humanity's requests. The sound of clicking mandibles and chiming crystal voices filled living rooms, offices, and public spaces across the planet. But something strange happened as people watched. There was no rioting in the streets, no angry protests demanding war. Instead, there was silence. A cold, calculating silence that would have terrified the aliens if they had understood what it meant. In the depths of a mountain facility in Colorado, Director Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Initiative received Elena's encrypted message. She read it 3 times, then picked up a red phone that connected directly to the president. "Sir, we need to activate Prometheus Protocol," she said simply. "Are you certain?" President Morrison asked. "They called us pets, sir. In front of the entire galaxy. I think 50 years of playing nice is enough." Within an hour, the most classified meeting in human history was taking place in a bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. The heads of every major military and intelligence organization on Earth gathered around a table that officially did not exist. What they discussed would never appear in any history book. General Martinez of Earth Defense Command spoke first. "Ladies and gentlemen, for 50 years we have been very careful to appear harmless. Today that performance ends." A massive holographic display activated above the table. It showed star charts that no alien had ever seen. Hidden bases in asteroid belts. Secret shipyards in the gas giant moons. Weapons platforms disguised as research stations. The real scope of human military power. "When we joined the galactic community," General Martinez continued, "we made a decision. We would learn everything we could while appearing to be exactly what they expected us to be. Primitive. Harmless. Grateful for their guidance. Director Chen stood up and activated another display. This one showed alien military bases, trade routes, communication networks, and government facilities. Every detail was perfect, down to guard schedules and security codes. For 50 years we have been studying them, she said. Every alien technology they showed us we reverse-engineered and improved. Every casual conversation with our diplomats we recorded and analyzed. Every cultural exchange student, every trade mission, every joint research project, all of it was intelligence gathering. The room was silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Singh of the Hidden Fleet spoke next. They think our largest ship is the UN peacekeeping vessel Harmony. It's 300 meters long and carries scientific equipment. They have no idea about the Vengeance-class dreadnoughts we built in the shadows of Jupiter's moons. Each one is 3 kilometers long and carries enough firepower to crack a planet. How many? Asked President Morrison. 47 operational, 15 more under construction. The president sat back in his chair. And they think we have 12 patrol boats. Exactly, sir. Dr. Yamamoto from the Xenobiology Division activated her display. It showed detailed psychological profiles of every major alien leader. We understand their thinking patterns better than they understand their own, she said. The cracks are obsessed with hierarchy and strength, but they equate loud displays with real power. The Zephyrians care only about profit and efficiency, but they assume everyone else thinks the same way. The Ethereals believe their age makes them wise, but it actually makes them predictable. Predictable how? Asked Director Chen. They always choose the same solutions because they always have. They cannot imagine that a younger species might think differently. To them, there are only 2 responses to being insulted: submit or attack directly. They have no concept of what humans call the long game. General Martinez activated a new display showing hidden human installations throughout alien space. They invited us to build research stations and cultural centers on their worlds. They never suspected these facilities might have secondary purposes. The dots of light on the map formed a pattern that covered every major alien world and strategic location in the galaxy. Each one had been carefully placed over decades. Each one was staffed by humans who had spent years becoming trusted members of alien communities. Agent Thompson has been the head of communications for the Crack's High Command for 7 years, Director Chen said. They trust him completely. Agent Patel manages the primary trade database for the Zephyrian Consortium. Agent Nakamura has been the personal meditation guide for the Ethereal Council for over a decade. They see us as harmless, said Admiral Singh. So harmless that they let us near their most sensitive operations. They gave us security clearances. They asked for our help with technical problems. They treated us like useful pets. President Morrison looked around the table. And now? Now we show them the difference between choosing to appear weak and actually being weak, said General Martinez. The displays changed to show real-time positions of human ships throughout the galaxy. Not the 12 patrol boats the aliens knew about, but hundreds of vessels moving in carefully coordinated patterns. Ships that had been hidden for decades were emerging from asteroid fields and gas clouds. The aliens think in terms of massive fleets and direct confrontation, explained Admiral Singh. They will expect us to gather our forces and meet them in honorable battle. Instead, we will fight the way humans always have when facing superior numbers, which is dirty. Director Chen activated the final display. It showed communication intercepts, hacked databases, and compromised systems throughout alien space. They built their civilization on the assumption that everyone would follow the same rules they do. They never secured their systems against people who might break those rules. For 50 years, said Dr. Yamamoto, they have been teaching us their weaknesses while we pretended to be grateful students. They showed us how their governments work, how their military thinks, how their technology functions. They gave us tours of their most secret facilities because they thought we were too primitive to understand what we were seeing. President Morrison stood up. What are you telling me? We're telling you that we can end their civilization without firing a shot, said Director Chen. Their trade networks run on software we helped design. Their military communications use encryption we helped develop. Their government databases are administered by humans they trust. If we activate the hidden programs our people have been carefully installing for decades, their own technology will turn against them, finished the president. Exactly. General Martinez brought up one final display. It showed a timeline labeled Prometheus Protocol. Phase 1. Withdraw all human personnel from alien space. Phase 2. Activate hidden systems and take control of their infrastructure. Phase 3. Demonstrate our real military capability. Phase 4. Negotiate from a position of strength. How long? Asked the president. 72 hours for complete implementation. President Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. They called us pets. Yes, sir. They laughed at us in front of the entire galaxy. Yes, sir. And they think we'll just accept whatever scraps they choose to throw us. Yes, sir. The president's voice was cold as winter. Activate Prometheus Protocol. Show them what this pet can do. Within minutes, coded messages were going out through quantum channels to every human agent, every hidden facility, every secret ship throughout the galaxy. The messages were simple. The performance is over. Begin Phase 1. On alien worlds across the galaxy, humans who had spent decades building trust and gaining access to sensitive systems began their final missions. The greatest intelligence operation in galactic history was about to bear fruit. The aliens had spent 50 years teaching humanity how to destroy them. They just never realized they were doing it. The first sign that something was wrong came at 0347 Standard Galactic Time. A routine cargo ship carrying Zephyrian luxury goods failed to respond to traffic control at the Proxima station. The controllers assumed it was a communication malfunction and sent a repair crew. They found the ship empty. The human crew had vanished, leaving behind a note that simply said, "Thank you for the education." By 0600, similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Human workers, diplomats, researchers, and trade representatives were disappearing from alien worlds. Not violently, not dramatically. They simply packed their belongings and left. At the Krayax Military Academy on Vex Prime, Professor David Chen had been teaching alien combat theory for 12 years. His students respected him greatly for his insights into human military thinking. That morning they arrived to find his office empty except for a datapad containing detailed lesson plans for the next 10 years of curriculum. The pad also contained a personal message. "Thank you for showing me your weaknesses." On the ethereal homeworld of whispered dreams, meditation guide Sarah Nakamura had spent 8 years helping ancient beings find inner peace. The Ethereal Council considered her one of their most trusted advisors. They found her quarters empty, with all her meditation crystals arranged in a pattern that spelled out a human phrase. Goodbye. The evacuations were so smooth and coordinated that most aliens did not realize what was happening until it was too late. Human families had been slowly moving their belongings off alien worlds for weeks. Essential personnel had been replaced by backup staff who were actually intelligence operatives. When the order came to leave, there was no chaos or confusion. Every human simply walked away from their lives in alien space. The Galactic Council called an emergency session to discuss the strange behavior. They met virtually since travel between systems had become unreliable. Human-operated ships that carried alien passengers and cargo had simply stopped running their routes. "This is clearly a childish tantrum," declared High Commander Vexkar. "The humans are upset about yesterday's council session, so they are sulking. They will be back when they need food and medical supplies." The Zephyrian trade representative was less confident. "Something is wrong with our shipping schedules. 17 major trade routes have stopped functioning. The humans were operating most of the logistics software for those routes." "Then we will replace them," said Vexkar. "How difficult can it be to operate a few cargo ships?" The answer came 3 days later when a Krayax fleet was sent to remind humanity of their obligations. 12 heavy cruisers entered the Sol system, expecting to find Earth's handful of patrol boats and conduct a show of force. What they found instead changed everything. Admiral Thexmore of the Krayax Imperial Navy had fought in 17 campaigns across the galaxy. He had never seen anything like what waited for him in Earth's solar system. The first warning came when his navigator reported impossible readings. "Sir, sensors are detecting artificial structures throughout the asteroid belt. Massive ones. Impossible. Our intelligence reports show only small mining operations. Sir, these are not mining operations." Admiral Thexmore looked at the tactical display and felt his stomach drop. The asteroid belt was full of weapons platforms. Huge cylindrical structures bristling with cannons that made his cruiser's main guns look like toys. Each platform was the size of a small moon. "Where did these come from?" he whispered. His communication officer received a transmission on an open channel. The voice spoke perfect Krax military dialect. "Attention, Krax vessels. You have entered the Terran defense grid. Your presence is not authorized. Prepare to be boarded." "Boarded?" Admiral Thexmore laughed nervously. "By what?" "I see no human ships." That was when they decloaked. Hundreds of vessels appeared around the Krax fleet. Ships unlike anything in the galactic databases. They were dark and angular, covered in armor that seemed to absorb sensor beams. Each one was twice the size of his heavy cruisers. "This is Admiral Thexmore of the Krax Imperial Navy," he transmitted. "We demand safe passage to Earth to conduct diplomatic business." The reply came from a human voice that sounded amused. "Admiral Thexmore, you are now prisoners of war. Your weapons and engines will be disabled. Any attempt to resist will result in the destruction of your vessels. We recommend compliance, prisoners of war." Thexmore sputtered. "There is no war. We are here on official council business. The Galactic Council has no authority in this system. Earth formally withdrew from all treaties 72 hours ago. You are foreign military vessels in sovereign human space without permission. That makes you invaders." Admiral Thexmore ordered his fleet to withdraw, but their faster-than-light drives would not engage. Error messages appeared on every screen. "FTL drive offline, external jamming detected." The human ships moved closer. Tractor beams locked onto each Krax vessel. Within hours, the entire fleet was docked at human space stations that had definitely not existed a week ago. As Krax Marines were escorted to holding areas by humans in advanced combat armor, Admiral Thexmore managed one last transmission to Krax High Command. "The humans, they were never what we thought they were. Send no more ships. Send no more ships!" Similar scenes played out across human space. Alien inspection teams that had been monitoring human colonies for decades suddenly found themselves surrounded by overwhelming force. Space stations that aliens had believed were simple research facilities revealed themselves to be military bases armed with weapons beyond current galactic technology. The Zephyrian Consortium lost an entire trade fleet when they tried to collect overdue payments from human colonies. The ships were captured intact, their crews unharmed but very confused about how their advanced vessels had been disabled so easily. The Ethereal Collective fared no better. Their probe ship sent to assess the human situation was intercepted at the edge of human space by a vessel that should not have existed according to their intelligence reports. The human captain who greeted them spoke flawless ancient Ethereal and seemed to know their mission before they announced it. "Honored Ethereals," the human said, "your presence here suggests that you still do not understand what has changed. Allow me to educate you." The probe ship's sensors were overwhelmed by the appearance of a human fleet that stretched beyond their ability to count. Thousands of vessels and formations that demonstrated military thinking far beyond anything humans were supposed to possess. "For 50 years, the human captain continued, you have seen what we wanted you to see. You believed we were primitive because we chose to appear primitive. You thought we were weak because we chose to seem weak. Today, you see what we actually are." Back on their homeworlds, alien governments struggled to understand what was happening. Their military forces could not contact their units in human space. Their trade networks were collapsing as human-operated systems failed to respond. Their intelligence services found that decades of carefully placed monitoring stations had gone dark simultaneously. The Galactic Council tried to meet again, but their quantum communication network was experiencing mysterious technical difficulties. The system had been partially designed by human technicians over the years, and now it seemed to respond only to commands from Earth. When they finally managed to establish contact, they found a message waiting for them. It was from Ambassador Elena Vasquez, but she was no longer speaking as a diplomat requesting favors. She was speaking as a representative of a power that had just demonstrated it could protect itself. To the members of the former Galactic Council, the message began. "Humanity hereby formally withdraws from all treaties, agreements, and obligations imposed upon us during our 50 years of membership. We thank you for the education you have provided about galactic civilization. We will be in touch when we are ready to discuss new arrangements based on mutual respect rather than condescending tolerance." The message ended with coordinates for a neutral meeting point and a simple statement. "Next time you wish to treat someone as a pet, make certain they cannot bite back." Across alien space, Governments were beginning to realize that their most serious problem was not humanity's military power. It was their complete dependence on human-operated systems that they had never bothered to understand. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans said they were withdrawing from galactic civilization, they meant it in ways no alien had imagined possible. The Galactic Council's response was swift and predictable. If humanity would not accept their proper place in the galactic order, they would be forced back into it through overwhelming military power. High Commander Vexkar called for the largest military coalition in galactic history. Representatives from every major power agreed that this human rebellion could not be allowed to succeed. If one species could simply withdraw from the Council's authority, others might follow. The entire system of galactic governance was at stake. Within 2 weeks, over 3,000 warships gathered at the Nexus rally point, just outside human space. The fleet included the pride of every major navy: Krayak's dreadnoughts with armor thick enough to withstand stellar radiation, Zephyrian strike cruisers built for speed and precision, ethereal mine ships that could coordinate perfectly across vast distances. Admiral Korath of the Drakmarian Republic commanded the coalition fleet. He was chosen because his species had remained neutral in most galactic conflicts, making him acceptable to all parties. He was also considered one of the finest strategic minds in the galaxy. "The plan is simple," he announced to his fellow commanders during the pre-battle briefing. "We establish a blockade around human space. We cut off their supply lines. We force their colonies to surrender through economic pressure. Humans require food shipments from agricultural worlds, medical supplies, rare minerals for their technology. Without access to galactic trade, they will submit within months." The other commanders agreed. This was how galactic wars were fought. Massive fleets, clear objectives, honorable battles between organized forces. Humans would have to defend their territory, allowing the coalition to use their superior numbers and firepower. The coalition fleet moved into human space in perfect formation, thousands of ships advancing in coordinated waves, ready to engage the human fleet in decisive battle. Sensors swept ahead looking for the enemy forces. They found nothing. "Where are they?" Admiral Korath asked his sensor operator after 6 hours of searching. "Unknown, sir. We detected human ships in this area yesterday, but now there are no active signatures. They cannot simply disappear. Continue scanning." The coalition fleet continued deeper into human space, expecting to find the enemy at any moment. Instead, they found empty star systems and abandoned space stations. No massive human fleet rose to meet them, no desperate defense of their homeworlds. The humans had simply vanished. That was when the supply problem started. The first cargo convoy carrying food and fuel for the coalition fleet never arrived at the rendezvous point. Search teams found debris scattered across 3 light years, but no survivors and no clear indication of what had destroyed the ships. "Probably an asteroid strike," Admiral Korath's chief of staff suggested. "Bad luck." The second convoy disappeared 2 days later. This time there was no debris. The ships simply vanished between star systems as if they had never existed. "Pirates," suggested the Zephyrian admiral. "What pirates could take on a military convoy?" Admiral Korath replied. "And why leave no trace?" The third convoy carried critical replacement parts for the coalition's faster-than-light drives. It was escorted by a full squadron of Krayak's heavy cruisers. The escort arrived at the destination on schedule, but the cargo ships were gone. The escort captains insisted they had been with the convoy the entire time, but their sensor logs showed gaps that they could not explain. Admiral Korath was studying the reports when his communication officer received a transmission on an emergency frequency. The message was simple. "You are being hunted." "Hunted by whom?" Korath demanded. "Show yourselves." There was no reply. The coalition fleet was running low on supplies after just 2 weeks. Fuel reserves were dropping rapidly. Food stocks were becoming critical. Several ships had developed mechanical problems that could not be repaired without the missing parts. That was when they realized they were not alone in the darkness. The attacks, when they came, were unlike anything in galactic military doctrine. Human ships appeared without warning, struck at weak points in the coalition formation, and vanished before return fire could be coordinated. They did not attempt to destroy enemy vessels. Instead, they targeted engines, communication arrays, and life support systems. Commander Zara Okafor led one of these strike missions. Her ship, the Shadow Walker, was built using a combination of human stealth technology and stolen alien designs. It could approach within weapons range of enemy vessels without being detected. Target their sensor array, she told her weapons officer as they closed on a Drakmarian battleship. Disable, don't destroy. We want them blind, not dead. The precision strike took out the battleship's ability to see beyond visual range. Before the enemy could respond, the Shadow Walker was gone, lost among the background radiation of a nearby star. Similar attacks happened across the Coalition fleet. Ships found their communications cut, their sensors blinded, their engines crippled. They were not being destroyed, but they were being systematically rendered helpless. Admiral Korath tried to adapt his tactics, but fighting an enemy he could not see or predict proved impossible. Human forces struck when and where they chose, then melted away before overwhelming force could be brought to bear. This is not how civilized species conduct warfare, complained the ethereal fleet commander, during a staff meeting held by Quantum Telepathy to avoid human surveillance. The humans are fighting like barbarians, agreed High Commander Vexkar. They show no honor, no courage. They strike from shadows and run from fair battle. What the alien commanders did not understand was that humans were fighting according to principles developed over thousands of years of warfare against superior forces. Concepts like guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics, and special operations were unknown to aliens who had always fought with technological equality. The Coalition fleet's problems grew worse when human infiltration teams began operating inside their formations. Teams led by operatives like Agent Martinez, who had spent 8 years studying crack security procedures while pretending to be a cultural attaché. Martinez and his team used stolen, cracks uniforms and perfect language skills to board enemy vessels during shift changes. They planted devices that would cause critical systems to fail at crucial moments. They modified computer programs to report false information. They introduced subtle flaws in weapons targeting systems. The beauty of the operation was that the aliens never suspected internal sabotage. When a Drakmarian cruiser's engines failed, the crew assumed it was mechanical problems. When a Zephyrian strike ship's weapons missed their targets, the gunners blamed calibration errors. When an ethereal mine ship lost contact with its fleetmates, the psychics attributed it to solar interference. The psychological effect was devastating. The Coalition fleet began to doubt their own equipment, their own abilities, their own senses. Phantom contacts appeared on sensors. Orders were received that no one remembered sending. Systems failed in ways that made no engineering sense. High Commander Vexakar's flagship, the Mandible of Glory, suffered a complete computer failure while patrolling near Jupiter. All systems shut down simultaneously, leaving the massive dreadnought drifting helplessly in space. As emergency crews worked frantically to restore power, Vexkar received a personal communication on a frequency that should have been impossible to access. The voice was calm, professional, and speaking perfect Krag's military dialect. High Commander Vexkar, this is Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth. I wanted to personally thank you for your educational demonstration at the Council session. You asked what humanity learned during 50 years of galactic civilization. Today you have your answer. What do you want, human? Vexkar snarled. I want you to understand something very important. You could have had us as friends. Instead, you chose to treat us as pets. Now you get to experience what happens when the pet turns out to be a predator. The communication ended. Power returned to Vexkar's ship, but every screen displayed the same message. Courtesy of the Earth Technical Support Team. By the end of the third week, the Coalition fleet was in full retreat. Not because they had been defeated in battle, but because they could no longer function as a military force. Their supply lines were cut, their ships were failing, and their crews were demoralized. Admiral Korath tried to maintain order, but his authority meant nothing when his orders could not be reliably transmitted or followed. The great coalition that was supposed to force humanity back into submission was dissolving into chaos. The final blow came when human hackers, led by cyber warfare specialist Dr. Sarah Kim, activated hidden programs in the Coalition's computer networks, programs that had been installed over years by helpful human technicians who had been fixing alien systems. Every ship in the Coalition fleet received the same message simultaneously. Your technology has been compromised. Your communications are monitored. Your movements are tracked. Your defeat is inevitable. Withdraw now, or discover what human warfare really looks like. The Great Coalition fleet limped home, defeated not by superior firepower but by an enemy that fought according to rules they had never imagined existed. The war that was supposed to last months ended in weeks. Not with massive space battles but with the systematic collapse of alien civilization's ability to function. The Great Coalition fleet limped home to find their worlds in chaos. On the Krayax homeworld of Vex Prime, nothing worked properly anymore. Traffic control systems gave contradictory orders to civilian ships. Government databases contained information that changed randomly. Even the environmental controls in government buildings seemed to have developed a malicious personality, alternating between freezing cold and oppressive heat. The Zephyrian Consortium discovered that their vast trade networks had become completely unreliable. Cargo ships arrived at the wrong destinations. Financial transactions were processed incorrectly. The complex algorithms that managed interstellar commerce produced results that made no mathematical sense. The ethereal collective found their ancient meditation chambers disrupted by strange electronic interference. Their telepathic communications were filled with what they described as chaotic human thoughts that made concentration impossible. It took several days for alien governments to realize what had happened. The humans had not just withdrawn from galactic civilization. They had taken galactic civilization with them. Director Chen sat in her office beneath the Swiss Alps, watching status reports flow across her screens. 50 years of careful preparation was paying off exactly as planned. Report from Agent Thompson, her aide announced. Crack's military communications are down across 17 sectors. They're using handheld radios like primitives. Agent Patel confirms the Zephyrian trade network is completely offline. They're trying to manage interstellar commerce with paper records and messenger ships. Agent Nakamura reports that the Ethereal Council has been in emergency session for 3 days, but they can't reach any consensus because their telepathic amplifiers won't stop broadcasting Earth television signals. Director Chen allowed herself a small smile. And the infrastructure assessment? 73% of galactic computer systems contain our code. 89% of communication networks route through our servers. 96% of interstellar navigation systems rely on our positioning satellites. The scope of human infiltration was breathtaking. For 50 years, aliens had invited humans to help with technical problems, never suspecting that each helpful solution contained hidden elements that gave Earth ultimate control. The Drakmarian Republic's military command structure depended on software that human programmers had written. The tentacled hegemony's food distribution network was managed by human-designed logistics programs. Even the Galactic Council's voting system ran on computers that contained hidden human subroutines. When humanity activated these sleeping programs, alien civilization did not collapse. It simply stopped responding to anyone but Earth. The killing blow came when Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked into the Galactic Council chamber once again. But this time, she was not requesting favors or pleading for better treatment. She was dictating terms. The chamber was the same, but everything had changed. The aliens who had laughed at humanity just weeks ago now sat in stunned silence. Their governments were paralyzed. Their militaries were crippled. Their economies had ground to a halt. Honored delegates, Elena began, her voice carrying none of the respectful deference it had contained before. Humanity appreciates this opportunity to discuss new arrangements for galactic civilization. High Commander Vexkar tried to interrupt.
This is illegal!
You cannot simply take control of sovereign systems. Elena looked at him with the same calm expression she had maintained during the humiliation. High Commander, we have taken control of nothing. We have simply stopped maintaining systems that we built, programmed, and operated for your benefit. If you object to our withdrawal of technical support, you are free to manage these systems yourselves. The chamber erupted in angry voices, but Elena continued speaking as if nothing had happened. Earth's terms are simple. First, complete autonomy for human space. No alien ships will enter our territory without permission. No alien authorities will have jurisdiction over human citizens or colonies. Impossible, shouted the Zephyrian representative. The Council has authority over all galactic trade routes. Not anymore, Elena replied calmly. Second, reparations for 50 years of discriminatory treatment. The economic losses imposed by your unfair trade policies and territorial restrictions must be compensated. The ethereal representative floated forward. You cannot simply demand payment for imaginary grievances. The amount has been calculated at 2.7 trillion galactic standard credits, Elena continued. Payment schedules and acceptable currencies are detailed in the documents being distributed now. Third, she said, raising her voice to speak over the growing protests, a new galactic charter that recognizes Earth as an equal member of the galactic community. Not a junior partner, not a probationary member, an equal voice with equal rights. Admiral Korath, who had commanded the failed coalition fleet, stood up from the Drakmarian section. And if we refuse these outrageous demands? Elena touched a control on her data pad. Every screen in the chamber activated, showing the same image. A map of galactic civilization with thousands of red warning indicators. These represent critical systems currently under human control, she explained. Power grids, communication networks, transportation hubs, medical facilities, food distribution centers. Every alien world depends on at least 17 of these systems to maintain basic civilization. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. If you refuse our terms, Elena continued, we will simply discontinue our technical support services. Your worlds will not be destroyed. Your people will not be harmed. You will simply have to learn how to manage your own technology. She paused to let that sink in. Of course, since these systems were designed with human-specific interfaces and use programming languages that we developed, learning to operate them might take several years, during which time you would need to maintain order on worlds where the power grids, food distribution, and transportation networks have stopped working. The silence stretched on for long minutes. Every alien delegate was calculating the same terrible arithmetic. Their civilizations had become completely dependent on human technical expertise. Without it, they would face chaos that could last for decades. High Commander Vexkar spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. This is extortion. No, Elena replied. This is the result of 50 years of careful planning by people you insisted on treating as pets. You taught us your weaknesses while assuming we were too primitive to use that knowledge effectively. She activated another display showing video footage from the recent conflict. Human ships disabling alien vessels with surgical precision. Coalition forces retreating in confusion. Supply lines collapsing under attacks they could not predict or prevent. You laughed at our primitive weapons and barbaric tactics, Elena said. You never considered that different does not mean inferior. You fight with honor because you have always been strong enough to afford honor. We fight to win because we remember what it means to be weak. The Zephyrian representative's crystalline form had turned dark with despair. What assurance do we have that you will honor any agreement? You have already demonstrated that human promises are worthless. Elena's expression softened slightly. We have never broken a treaty or failed to honor a commitment. For 50 years we kept every promise we made to you, even when you treated us with contempt. The difference is that now we are making promises as equals, not as grateful supplicants. She gestured to the displays showing galactic infrastructure. These systems represent the fruits of cooperation between our species. We built them together, though you never acknowledged our contributions. We can continue to maintain them together, under terms that respect all parties. Or, she added, her voice growing cold again, you can learn to maintain them yourselves. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. Not because the aliens agreed with Earth's terms, but because they had no choice. The alternative was the collapse of galactic civilization. As the delegates signed the new accords, Elena allowed herself to remember the humiliation she had endured in this same chamber. The laughter, the condescending comments, the casual dismissal of humanity's worth. High Commander Vexkar, she said as the Krayax leader approached the signing table, you once suggested that next year Earth might propose something more appropriate, like asking permission to exist. Vexkar's mandibles clicked nervously. I may have spoken hastily. Indeed, I trust this year's proposals are more to your liking. As the ceremony concluded, Elena sent a message to President Morrison. Terms accepted. Humanity's probationary period is officially over. The response came back immediately. Welcome to the adult table, Ambassador. Years later, xenobiologists studying this period would identify it as a perfect example of humanity's most dangerous characteristic, their ability to appear harmless while systematically preparing for total victory. They called it the Terran paradox, a species capable of both genuine cooperation and utterly ruthless pragmatism. The galaxy had learned too late that humanity's greatest weapon was never their technology or their military might. It was their patience.